Still watching TVC Breakfast. Now, President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed Nigeria's dedication to deepening bilateral relations with Brazil. Now, during the meeting, both nations signed key business agreements aimed at enhancing cooperation, including the establishment of direct flights between Nigeria and Brazil, an initiative to boost livestock investments as well. President Bola Tinubu is also excited about Petrobras' imminent return to Nigeria 5 years after the Brazil state-owned oil company halted its joint venture operations. Now, TVC News House correspondent Femi Akonde has more on this.
During the state visit, Nigeria and Brazil signed 5 memoranda of understanding to strengthen trade, diplomacy, science, aviation, and finance cooperation. President Bola Tinubu praised President Lula da Silva's commitment to revitalizing the partnership between the two countries, noting that Nigeria's economic space remains a virgin land full of opportunities for Brazilian companies. He acknowledged Embraer's efforts in addressing the critical challenges of local airline operations in Nigeria, primarily through establishing a service center to serve as a hub for the sub-region in essential repairs and maintenance of its ever-increasing fleet in Nigeria.
We have the youth population in Nigeria that is restless, willing, and energetic, brilliant, ready to learn, ready to work, ready to exchange ideas. The speculators are out in our currency market. The door is open for businesses. Easy in, easy out.
President Lula welcomed the restart of the Brazil-Nigeria relationship. The two leaders witnessed the signing of agreements and MOUs in Brasilia. The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, and Brazil's Minister of Ports and Airports, Silvio Costa Filhos, signed a bilateral air service agreement to boost trade and people-to-people ties.
President, you can be sure that your visit to Brazil today definitely signifies Brazil's return to the African continent, not as a country seeking a hegemonic relationship with anyone, but as a country seeking a relationship of solidarity, fraternal, and equality.
Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of Nigeria, Ambassador Bianca Ojukwu, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Brazil, Ambassador Mauro Vieira, signed an agreement on diplomatic training cooperation. Both ministers also signed an MOU on political consultations. Nigeria's Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Geoffrey Nnaji, and Brazil's Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Luciano Santos, signed an MOU on cooperation in biotechnology, bioeconomy, ocean science, innovation ecosystems, energy, space development, digital transformation, and raw materials research. Nigeria is Brazil's 49th largest export destination, with trade totaling nearly $2.1 billion in 2024. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Now, joining us for this conversation via Zoom from Belgium is Global Affairs Analyst Collins Nweke. He joins us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Collins. How are you doing?
Very well, Ria. Thank you for having me.
Same here, same here. I love the energy. How's Belgium this morning?
It's sunny, okay. And we couldn't ask for a better weather. And it's midweek, so yeah, everything is fine here. I hope it's not raining.
No, it's not raining. It's beautiful here in Lagos as well. But let's get straight into the conversations. You know, we're seeing a lot of news from the bilateral relationship between Nigeria and Brazil. We're seeing the president speaking about how Nigerian youths are energetic and ready. And then we're seeing, you know, direct flights that will be coming. We're also hearing that Air Peace, you know, may be the carrier of these flights. We're hearing about the oil as well. And some Nigerians seem to be excited because oftentimes we hear that the president is always traveling, but now it seems like we're seeing returns from this travel. You know, what do you make of this in general?
Well, Ria, the president is actually continuing what you know, he has started from the very moment he took over office as president of Nigeria, which is being the chief marketing officer of the country. He's been doing it fantastically well. Now, do you blame those who, complain that, his shuttle diplomacy is costing a lot of money and, they are not sure if it is the right thing? No, you couldn't blame them because, they are feeling, some economic crunch. They haven't seen much changes in their economic, situation. Cost of living continues to be high and all of that. And then, of course, they hear the arguments that, the reforms that the president has put in place are actually aimed at long term. Yes, that is correct, and that is a very valid argument. But until people begin to, see the impact of, these foreign trips, and they are huge. I mean, the accomplishments are huge. But until the accomplishments begin to trickle down to the everyday Nigerian, yes, of course, people will continue to, put some question mark as to whether it is, the right thing for Nigeria or not. But, of course, analysts will tell you that, this is the next best thing after sliced bread as far as Nigerian foreign policy and diplomacy is concerned.
But now, looking at it historically, these ties, especially, between, we remember that during the transatlantic slave trade in the 1500s to 1800s, about 3.5 billion Nigerians, Africans generally, million rather, Africans were forcibly taken to Brazil, during that period. And President Lula da Silva, acknowledged the fact that, yes, there was this slave trade that happened, which now makes us have more Africans, especially from the southwestern part of the country, talking about the Yorubas, who are there for 350 years, contributing to the economy of the Brazilian continent and all of that. And he has said, promising or proposed repaying these debts through solidarity and technology transfer, which we need. So given Nigeria's role as Africa's largest economy and Brazil's position as BRICS leader, do you see this as a game changer, or do you see this, cultural ties, translating into tangible economic benefits, so much so that we can now say, yes, it's a model for the South-South cooperation?
Well, Ibrahim, you touched on a very, very important point there, which, quite a lot of people have actually missed. And that is the fact that Nigeria and Brazil share centuries-long connection forged in history's, harshest crucibles, I would say. Brazil was the largest single importer of enslaved Africans during the transatlantic slave trade. Well, it is not the kind of trade you want to encourage, but, at the time, that was trade, receiving over 5.5 million Africans between the 16th and I believe the 19th, centuries. And many of those were, from, they were taken from port cities like Calabar, Badagry, Lagos, and all of that, cementing a painful but enduring link between the two nations. So that is the harsh part of history. But it is important to hear the point that you have just made, which is that while some might be talking of reparation and all of that, Africa needs to be compensated for, some of those atrocities done on Africans, from which Africa appears not to have recovered. President Lula is promising President Tinubu that their reparation is actually going to use transfer of technology, deeper trade and all of that, so that, both countries treat each other with humanity, friendship and all of that. And then there is, mutual benefit, to derive from it. Now, so far, there have been 4 significant, trade deals signed. I mean, the most prominent of which is the possibility now that, allegedly, Air France will be flying directly from, Nigeria to Brazil.
Airpeace, you mean?
In just 7 hours. Now, if you ask Nigerians living in Brazil, and there are quite a number of them, they will tell you that at the moment, it takes nearly 24 hours to fly from Nigeria to Brazil. That is a disincentive for business. So even starting from there tells you a lot about what is to unfold.
Yeah, indeed. Mr. Nweke, thank you so much for some of those analysis. When you talked about slaves being taken from Calabar, to Brazil, hence we've seen Brazilians come to the Calabar Christmas Festival year after year with the Ekpe masquerade. And if you see what they bring, it looks exactly like what is been, dressed up as well in Calabar. So you're true to that. And let's talk about the benefits of this bilateral ties now. Yourself, as one who is on the forefront with Belgium and Nigeria, because I was at your last event or one of your events where you were trying to do this on the educational side. Talk to Nigerians as to how we can also position ourselves to hop on this new tie the president is brought to us with Brazil. How can Nigerians benefit from this?
Well, I think it's pretty, simple. That's Nelson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, please.
Yes, Nelson, indeed. Sorry, I can't see the studio from here, but I think we've been talking to each other for quite some time now that I even recognize the voices.
Well done.
Yeah, right. Listen, what governments do all over the world is, in Nigeria, we use this balance, creating the enabling atmosphere for, things to begin to happen. Essentially, if you look at what Mr. President has been doing since taking office, it is indeed, creating that enabling, environment for businesses not only to survive, but to thrive. And the Brazil, trip, and the second, I would say, since taking office, some 2 years ago, is actually meant, to do that because take the, the BASA agreement, for instance. It is not Air Nigeria or Air Tinubu that will be flying from Lagos to Brazil. No, it is a private carrier, like we have heard, Air Peace. Now, another example closer to me here in Belgium, which is France. I mean, in one of his recent trips, 2 deals, I believe, were signed in France, whereby United Bank for Africa PLC will open full-fledged banking operations in France. I mean, we are not talking of a branch of UBA in Nigeria opening shop in France. No, they are being licensed as a full-fledged European bank, positioned in France. Again, private sector. We understand Zenith Bank, is following suit as well. And so this example can be replicated all over the place. Now, what business opportunity does it create for everyday Nigerians? I tell you, currently I'm a senior consultant with Nigeria, Belgium, Luxembourg Business Council. Yeah. And what we do is, like Nelson referenced, mobilizing Nigerians who are desirous to doing business outside Nigeria and mobilizing their counterparts out here in Belgium and Luxembourg, creating that linkage and then allowing them to begin to transact. Now, that wouldn't be possible if the business environment in Nigeria does not, favor such a transaction. So you see, breaking it down to where the everyday Nigerian, what it means is that Mr. President is creating incentives. For instance, you hear him use the word, I mean, people could take it for granted when he says, easy in, easy out. Now, what that essentially means is that when you come to Nigeria as a foreign investor with your money, the difficulties they used to have, the challenges of repatriating part of their profit back to their country, he's telling you that that is no longer the case. When you do make profits, you have easy way of now sending them back to Nigeria. So what we are getting from investors is that this is good news, and what do? They are actually keying in on it. I mean, it's not Collins Nweke saying this now, but the last figure released by Nigerian Export Promotion Council has told us that in the first quarter of 2025, the exports, grew. The exports from Nigeria to other countries grew by over 20%. I mean, that is huge. That is huge because it now shows that, the diversification of the economy away from, oil is beginning to yield dividend. And I mean, these things just don't happen. They happen because there is, a strategic plan behind it, promoting international trade, solidifying our diplomacy. And so that is something to applaud out of, some of these trips.
Mr. Collins, let me come in here and let's talk about oil. We know that the president is very excited about the Petrobras coming back to Nigeria. If I'm correct, they left in 2020. But what do you think this is going to do for our oil sector right about now?
Well, Petrobras is poised, like we have heard out of news filtering out of Brazil. They are now poised to return to Nigeria after 5-year absence. Now, that is signaling potential deep water oil exploration investments. Now, what it means is that Brazilians, but also other countries who have interest in, deep water oil exploration investment now see a big global player in the sector coming into Nigeria, not only with its finances, which means that, there's going to be more foreign direct investment, but they are also coming in with technology. And most importantly, Ria, they are also bringing in human capacity, human capital. Now, all of this means that Nigerians in the sector, I mean, quite apart from the huge impact it's going to have, on the oil economy of Nigeria, we're also going to see, some transformation in the human capital base specific for, the oil sector, the oil exploration. And then, of course, allied sectors, because it doesn't end at just oil. So the ripple effect is expected to be huge. And, this is something that Nigerians, should, be very, very pleased about.
Well, interesting stuff. So there have been several MOUs signed, and I recall that one of my colleagues actually chuckled when we had different we saw it on TV and they were like, okay, we're signing. Are we sure we understand all of the legalese and all of that in these MOUs? So much so that when we cross the I's and the T's, we get it right. But if you look at the relationship between Nigeria and Brazil, sometime in 2013. The strategic dialogue mechanism that was established at the time, plummeted from $10 billion in 2014 to $2 billion in 2024. So they are now saying, critics are saying that these MOUs, they always look good on paper. How are we so sure that these MOUs that have been signed, we will follow it through? That's on the one side. On the other side is that, this business trade, Brazil, big on sugar, big on jam, and all of that. They have the ecosystem. They are hosting the biggest, the vast Amazon, on this earth, helping the ecosystem. Would they not overshadow the Nigerian counterparts so much so that will now be the underdog because they are the largest, largely industrialized more than us, and they tend to always dominate, whatever partnerships that they sign? What kind of legal, framework can we put in place to ensure that, yes, we play, quid pro quo rather than, being overshadowed by the biggest Brazil?
Ibrahim, I will start with the last bit of the question. Now, Nigeria has shown pragmatism in its business relations, particularly in the last, 2 years. I mean, we happen to now have a president that is decisive. Prior to that, 8 years before his time, we, had a president that was highly indecisive. So, they are just, two sides, they are polar opposites as far as that is concerned. Now, the last time we also, Nigeria also witnessed, a president in the temperament and character of the current one was when President Obasanjo was there. The key question that I believe this president usually asks is, what is in it for Nigeria?
That's right.
He is ready at all times. I mean, check his trajectory from Lagos up until now in Abuja. He is ready to actually give up some strategic interest in pursuit of the bigger goal. I'm not a lawyer, but I tend to understand a thing or two about strategy, and I do know that he will be looking at the global picture in terms of how the deals will ultimately translate to Nigeria's best interest while avoiding being overshadowed by Brazil. Now, let's not forget that Nigeria is a bigger market by all standards than Brazil. It may well be that technologically and otherwise they are more advanced than Nigeria, but Nigeria is not coming to to the table as the weaker of the two partners. No, certainly not, because Nigeria has the things that Brazil doesn't have. So our negotiating position, to sum that aspect of our negotiating position is strong, and we have in President Tinubu, a marketer, a strategist that will ensure that Nigeria's interest is protected. Now, the second part of the first part of your question related to the deal signed in 2013. Yes. Let me say this upfront without mincing words. Over the years, despite goodwill and potential, Nigeria-Brazil relations are marked by repeated cycles of MOUs without meaningful implementations. I mean, there are no two ways to go around that. Now, take for instance, in 2005, there was this trade and investment agreement which was intended to boost bilateral investment flows and market access, specifically market access. But no institutional framework was created to operationalize it. I mean, I'm talking of 2005, 20 years ago. Now, the potential loss to Nigeria for not following through that agreement is a structured platform for SMEs, small, medium enterprises, and investors. They could have had multiplied bilateral trade volumes, several times over. But that did not happen. I'm sorry about this.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. But that did not happen. Now, going over...
I know there's a lot that will be said, but our time is not permitting us, but I know a lot will be said. Thank you so much, Mr. Collins Nweke. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Your insights are totally fantastic. And we hope to have you in the studio very, very soon. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Ibrahim and Nelson.
Thank you. Now, after the break, we will focus on politics and zoning debates among political parties ahead of the 2027 elections. Stay with us.